this Park and Shade meeting to order. Roll call.
Jen Harmer.
Here.
Steve Barnowski is absent at the moment. Barb Reeser.
Here.
Jean Seelig will be absent. Lucy Aaron's.
Here.
Nate Tebow said he was coming, but he's absent at the moment. And Jan Barnett.
Here. Okay. Let's start with public comment. Does anybody have any public comment? No? Hearing none, we'll move on. Tree disease and insects. You wanna go? Are you guys, is the plan for you guys to be here regularly or no?
Yes, I mean, normally they
Oh,
would
we got
attend.
Nate. All right. Forum plus. Is that the plan for the future? I don't know.
If they're available.
If they're available, okay. Yeah, I don't wanna take time away from your actual job, but we're happy to have you.
It's a good day for you.
Yeah, it's a good day to be here. Okay, go ahead.
You want to know about disease and insects? Well, we'll be treating emerald ash for the springtime. That'll be all of metal work gets done this year. We do a 3-year treatment rotation.
Right.
So this year's metal work and part of museum and summer crossing, I think. I have to go back to my head. And lantern, spotted lantern fly that we discussed before. Really, over the past 2 years, it's been a decline. And they're really just a nuisance bug, just kind of like Japanese beetle, and not really harming the trees. They're just more nuisance to humans than they are to
Yeah.
the trees.
So I guess my question is, if this isn't something we're addressing, can we remove it from the agenda? I don't think this is something we need to discuss.
I would agree with that.
Let's get rid of that off the agenda next.
And not much, that's been the same
Yeah.
answers for
Yeah,
years.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Unless something new would come up.
right.
Right.
Any other issues we're dealing with? Any
Well, the only
diseases
other
or-
thing that we do right now is at High Road there, the crab apples, we spray them for disease for leaf drop, so they're treated yearly to keep them looking nice. That really isn't harmful to the tree, it just makes them look horrible. So I treated it once already this year, so I do 3 treatments to 4 treatments on it for fungicide.
Anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay. Let's look on to number 4 with our spring and summer plans and where we're going and what's happening.
Some of the plans, getting Happy Hollow together for Earth Day. Mulching, we're doing all the mulching in the borough, getting the flower beds ready for that. Yeah, hopefully we can do better with that. Yeah, but it does look better. The treatment for the ponds, for the skating pond and the duck pond, that'll start in April. The playgrounds, I don't know if this falls in this category or this group of parks. They're gonna get inspected this year at the end of April too. And then just your daily maintenance, just trying to keep stuff looking good and getting ready.
Did we talked about the kiosks and one of the new ones went in
Off Old Mill Road.
off Old Mill Road, okay.
The other one's together and just kind of waiting.
Just waiting, yeah, okay. Another question.
There was a water fountain donated last year.
Okay.
Probably,
that's right.
probably in April, we'll get that installed on Old Mill Road as well.
Okay. And the pond, weren't we putting like a new system in there that was going? The duck pond, yeah.
The aerators were put in last year, but it needs to be treated. It's just been, I don't wanna say it's been so long, but the treatments are supposed to gradually clean that out. I mean, we were just talking too, part of the problem with that pond is the trees along the road there were taken down, which created shade for that pond. Now it just blooms right up because it gets full sun. So the treatments will make it a lot better.
Okay.
And we get some trees in there eventually. Eventually, it's gonna take time.
We started the treatments, cause we got rid of the,
They start in April.
They start in April,
Yeah,
okay.
The aerated system is in already. but the two together will clear it up a lot more.
Just
Yeah.
for comment, we were going through some of Dwayne's old files over there and there's some old correspondence, I don't know, I forget if that was the eighties or the nineties.
Oh, yeah.
This committee talking about the duck pond. You know, so we've been talking about this for 30, 40 years.
Yeah, you gotta keep talking about it.
Yeah.
And then the bluebird boxes, what was this about?
Lucy, do you wanna touch base on that?
Yeah, sometime this winter, 5 boxes that had been on Kitty's trail for a long, long time were taken away, and someone put up these little brand new boxes, apparently without checking with anybody. And those boxes don't meet kind of the, specifications that a nest box is supposed to. And the primary problem with them was the drop from the entrance hole to the floor was only about 4 inches, which makes it way too easy for predators to reach in there. It's supposed to be at least 5.5 inches or so. And there were some other things that weren't any ventilation holes, and so they have been taken down and they've been all replaced now. 2 boxes were donated by Bear Club member Art Zdankwick, who is a prolific nest box producer for Hawk Mountain and has a huge bluebird trail. And I, at my own expense, I ordered 3 that Steve Bonoski had recommended that are similar to a few others, I guess newer ones he's put up. And they are very nice cedar boxes, easy to install, and the crew has, so those boxes that were replaced with substandard ones have all been replaced now.
Was this just a resident like him? Do we
So
know who happened?
I almost very odd but coincidental timing. Lucy reached out to me about the ones that were installed without borough approval, and it was either the same day or the next day. The resident who put them up, who did not know any better, reached out to me about something else that it came up in conversation. So I nicely explained, hey, you shouldn't be installing, like, we appreciate the gesture, but you should not be installing things on borough property, period, much less there's concerns about these boxes. I asked if they would voluntarily take them down. They did. So
They did?
But there were boxes there?
they took some of the ones down. There were 2 different areas.
Oh,
So the ones that they put up adjacent to their property happens to abut the Parklands. So the ones that they put up, they took down. There are other ones, I think, out by the Parks barn that we don't know who put up. And hopefully they don't touch the new ones that you were kind enough to find for us. I mean, I think it's great. In theory, someone had the idea or wanted to help or do something they thought was good. It just sounds like there was a bit of a lack of education on their part as to what's appropriate and what's not.
Right, but were there boxes there originally that the borough had put in, or that had been there?
Did
they take something
Did
down?
they take something down, or did they just?
they took something down. Oh,
Are
yeah.
you,
Yeah,
I
okay,
think where
that's-
you're talking about by the Parks barn, yes. The other location where the resident admitted they put boxes up, I don't think there were boxes there to begin with.
Oh.
We're talking about two distinct areas separated as a crow flies by probably 1/2 to 3/4 of a mile.
Okay.
Do the borough employees take care of those boxes? I know Kitty Heiss did it for years.
Kitty always did it, whatever.
Steve Baier has been monitoring
Yeah,
them.
he sort of took over for
Well,
Kitty.
I know, and this year, I mean, I had occasionally, offered to help him or do certain things like the clean out at the end of the year. And this year, when the nest box, the mystery nest box issue came up, we had, some email exchange, and he asked me if I would be able to check them this summer at least once a month. But he didn't say whether doesn't feel he has time to do it at all anymore. I'm unclear, and once a month is, not what it should be, and I could probably do it once a month, but I did, with Michelle's help, right? Get in touch with the
Lauren Nathamer.
person who's in charge of the environmental club at Wyomissing junior, senior high, because I thought, maybe, in part, this could be done by a group of students under supervision, and that would be a nice project. And she certainly expressed an interest, but the timing was just too late this year. So she and I might get in touch, but that's not a long-term, solution, because each year it would depend on the interest of the students.
Well, this is, I think, one of the points where we've talked in the past where we would like to create sort of a volunteer-based subcommittee that would be in charge of taking over the little tasks that the borough can't, checking on the bird boxes, these little sort of things, getting together as groups and helping to keep an eye on invasives and pull invasives under the guise of Park and Shade is just sort of a volunteer group. And starting to get together, creating that one.
Consistent with our collective bargaining agreements.
Consistent with our collective bargaining agreements.
Sure.
Yeah, not taking away from the employees' actual work.
Not anything they
just
wanna do.
Yeah. So, maybe I'll get that maybe on the next, agenda and try and we can discuss some of these little things like the bird boxes.
Yeah,
That would be
I would
helpful,
think
that
if
people who wanna be active
there
and
were.
do something in the Parklands, we wanna make sure they're doing it under our guidance.
Right, and there could be signage on the park kiosk that would direct people who are having these
Yeah.
thoughts, like, oh, there is an opportunity and there's a group and
Here's a group, let's reach out and see how we can help instead of just
Keep your hands on.
putting boxes up, right, instead of installing boxes that aren't right, yeah. So that would be the goal, so I will get that on the agenda.
I promise.
Does anybody have any other questions or discussion about what's going on this spring or summer? Okay. Then I guess we are gonna talk about the stewardship study. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, we're at it.
Hi, I'm Zach Baier with Floura, Teeter, Landscape Architects, and I'm joined by Larry and Brooke from Berks Nature. They're our partner on the plan here. I'll be brief on the background for, I know Larry was here previously to introduce the study, but we were engaged by the Borough to look at the land management practices at the Parkland and develop a stewardship plan to inform future land management, and especially marry that with the Borough, Park and Shade Tree Commission, and the public's kind of goals and vision for the park. For this, so right now we're working through some inventory and assessment of the site, kind of in tangent with some community engagement. We're talking to this group as part of that. The graphic here is just a quick, some themes we're finding on site. The lighter green areas on here, along the highlands and here, are areas that are, there's a lot of lawn or trees and lawn that could be converted to more natural areas and shift that focus away from, routine maintenance. The darker green that's a little bit higher up at the fields are areas where there's some early successional fields, maybe a similar thinking or kind of help that kind of process along. As well as the yellow and the wooded area there, where it's dominated by honeysuckle and other invasive species, as well as some stillgrass throughout those other areas. A big part of this focus too is that riparian buffer. There's erosion and flooding throughout, particularly in this area here. There's the area that's called the wetlands as it is now, but then up in here that's just south and downhill of the park barn, as well as the area that's just south of the old mill parking lot. And those two areas are we've seen it's been wet for I've been there at least, and it's an area that we kind of want to talk through what can be done there. And all of this is really hopefully kind of priming for the next agenda item, that sidewalk, to kind of discuss more of these themes and what we can actually do to address them. On the next page, we have again some pictures just showing those representative areas. In the upper left, there's an area where the trail is coming in really close to the creek, kind of limiting what we can do in that space without kind of broader thinking. Rounding out the left hand of the page, there are some of that trail erosion that we're seeing throughout the Parklands, runnel erosion along Cambridge Ave, and and then sitting water, and that one up there is just below the park lot. You know, so it's again a problem area. On the right hand side here, then we have again some of those areas where there might be an opportunity to think about how we're managing those areas to encourage some more forest development there, as well as the Old Mill parking lot, which is an area that kind of sits above that low spot, which is good for the parking, but then it creates a bit of an accessibility concern to get down into the trails, especially when there's the flooding in there. That said, our next steps we're working through this assessment is to kind of, in tangent, is going through some community engagement. We have stakeholder interviews coming up in the next few weeks. Right now we're talking to the Highlands at Wyomissing, since they are the neighbor to the Parkland. Group that we haven't had a chance to engage with, is of course some of the single family residents that about the Parklands as well. We'll also hope to talk to the environmental club. I made a note to make sure to talk about the bluebird boxes again. Talk to Lauren, and then Fleet Feet, excuse me, as well, to figure out how runners are using the park and those amenities that could be incorporated through that. In addition to those kind of stakeholder interviews that are more one-on-one, we'll do a couple of community engagement events. Earth Day celebration on the 20th, and a public survey that we'll have advertised through both of those, as well as the trout rodeo on May 11th. We'll have Floura will be there with the table, and Berks Nature will be there with the table. Some kind of broader educational elements too, on the importance of the riparian health and taking care of our waterways, especially for the trout rodeo. But then, of course, as a chance to kind of talk one-on-one with some people about their concerns, what they've seen, and make sure that we're kind of folding all of that in before we do the next part of the study, which is preliminary recommendations and then a draft plan. Hopefully, that draft plan kind of in late June or late July, and the final plan being due to the Borough in August. So we've identified some kind of focus areas for that study that we obviously want to make sure we marry with what we're hearing from stakeholders in the community and the borough. But that being infrastructure and amenities, so trails and seating areas, educational components, land management, so that's again that mowing, and treating the hazard trees and invasives, stormwater improvements, especially MS4. And I know Larry's kind of probably a better resource for that one than I am. And then that vegetation conversion is figuring out how to kind of get some of those areas to, back into woodlands and shift that, regular maintenance of mowing to something that kind of hopefully maintains itself.
I know you've had counters at different parts of the
Yes.
Parkland, so you should have data showing how many people go in different parts at different times of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Will you be using that data to look what I think are the most important community stakeholders, which is the people who actually are in the park?
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to show up at the times where most people and actually talk to those folks?
Yes, that's kind of probably in tangent with the Earth Day celebration and the trout rodeo, since they're both morning events. We'll probably spend some time at the Parkland then too, so those events also aren't at the park. On those days, trying to engage with some people. Right now we're seeing that Sundays are a big day, travel day, so it would be good, I think, to get out there on some of those Sundays. And we're interested too to see with those park hunters how those numbers, if there's an uptick or in correlation with the nicer weather. As well, yeah, you can anticipate there to be, yeah, but it's a really good point. We should make sure that we're out there to kind of capture some of those peak visitation times, so that we're talking to the people who are there regularly. In relation to the trail counters too, we had talked about right now they're tracking the parking lots, kind of who's coming in and where they're going. But maybe shifting some of them to maybe along the paved route and some of the non-paved routes to figure out where, once people are in the park, where are they going? I expect a lot of people are kind of taking that kind of more or less east-west from Old Mill to the quarry. But to see how many people are kind of going into like the meadow and the woodlands to or if it's mostly just kind of go up, down, and go home, and then maybe engage some of those people and figure out ways we can improve that to kind of expand on that element.
I live at the Highlands, and I'm chair of a resident advisory committee there. there called Grounds and Maintenance. There's 9 members of the committee. There's also 10 additional residents who act as advisors. So it's a group of 19 residents, most of whom are motivated by trying to improve environmental stewardship practices at the Highlands. And a lot of our members are very knowledgeable. And, you know, say you're engaging with the Highlands, I will tell you that communication and transparency is not one of the hallmarks of the people who actually make the decisions there.
Okay.
And, you know, our grounds and maintenance committee would love to somehow, you know, have an ear to the ground or be involved, and I just wanted to make you
Yeah, of
aware of that.
Yeah, I'll get my contact information for
Right.
you at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can have a.
I can
Yeah.
email introduce you to after the meeting to save you from having to write anything down.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah, no, you guys together would be great. This QR code survey, do you have that survey created already?
Yes, yep,
Yes.
Michelle's pulled up here, so.
Oh,
yeah,
it
to-
is,
yep,
okay.
to gauge kind of who's visiting, when they're visiting, how they're getting there. We assume most people drive, but where they're parking. We know parking is definitely kind of a hot button issue, so making sure that we're, you know, figuring out how people generally feel about that, and, you know, especially if people are trying to go to one parking slot and have to ultimately go to another, or do they go home, you know? So a lot of the questions are along the you know, select all that apply or select one, and then at the bottom, there's a few that are kind of more open-ended to figure out some of the, you know, thoughts, the greater thoughts that maybe someone in the community has that we haven't thought of so far.
Yeah. Is there a way to possibly get printouts like we do for our events, for the rec committee, and get these QR codes and this survey out there so anybody can see it at any point and scan it with their phone and answer it and get it in emails and.
Well, the thought was we were gonna post it on the website and do an email blast on the website plus through my rack, put it in the kiosks at the park stations, and then they're going to be at Earth Day and the fishing rodeo with the flyer that anybody attending can scan.
Okay.
I'm hoping to share it too as we have some of these stakeholder interviews, share that with our contacts to hopefully kind of word of mouth spread that way too to larger groups and kind of any way we can.
Social media.
Yep, yeah, if there's the opportunity to kind of post
People
the
don't
meetings
listen
from
to it.
today, that way anyone searching there, I think that
Yeah,
anywhere we can get that QR code, I'm
Right.
on board, yeah.
awesome.
But will there be ways for people who are not, shall we say, too cell phone savvy to
Of course, yeah,
participate?
so there's the QR code, and there's also
We do
the,
have some.
yeah, the link, the QR code will take you to, so we can kind of share both. During the, Earth Day and Trout Rodeo events, we were planning on also having a few copies printed out, that we can either, someone can take and fill out and give back to us, or we can kind of record their answers, you know, quickly there, with that person, just to make sure that we are meeting anyone's needs.
You asked, at the beginning, you asked about how the group of people, but you don't ask how big the group is.
Yeah, so we were trying to.
You don't, I would have thought that'd be the natural third question.
Just like how big the family or
Well,
like
if you ask for the ages, but.
yeah, that's a good idea. We can I'm sure add that in. Yep.
Well, if, I mean, just was my opinion, doesn't mean you have to agree.
No. Yeah. I think
Okay.
that's another good way to.
Yeah.
Another good way to capture.
Don't downplay it.
For the special.
Because we were trying to capture with the ages, you know, is it parents with kids, is it, you know, couples or what? But I think that the number in the group, I think is a good way to capture that because, I mean, if my wife and I visited, we both checked the same thing and we couldn't. So, you know, so that would be, you know, I think a way to figure out that it's 2 adults within that age range or
Yeah, do
something
you use
similar.
this as a couple, individually, as a
Mhm.
family?
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
One quick thought, I think I just wanted to encourage the idea of kind of getting out there outside of the events as
Mhm.
well, because it just jumps out to me that like the Trout Rodeo and Earth Day celebration, so the Earth Day celebration, that's a relatively new thing, I don't remember that has been, well, I didn't know that
Comes with-
that
it's
happened,
it's
but,
been very
okay, yeah, I didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
One, and so like, but also, like, I feel like that could be a very, like, self-selecting,
Mhm.
skewed
Right.
group of people to be giving feedback, that, you know, just that other opportunities where just kind of a more, potentially broader
Mhm.
representation of the folks that are in the park versus like the trout fishermen and the people that are like actually knew that there was a regular so just wanted to kind of, put that out there as something to consider.
Yes, maybe like a pop-up event almost.
Yeah, something like that.
Makes
I think
sense.
could,
Yeah, like a pop-up event is something we could advertise,
Yeah,
next
yeah.
Sunday,
Mhm.
come visit the Parklands, here's a QR code, like, check out the Parklands, come speak with Floura and Teeter, come speak with Berks
Yeah.
Nature, do you want your voice heard?
yeah, and like
Like
just pick
really-
like a random
Mhm.
Sunday. or
Yeah,
something.
really advertise that to people, Saturday or Sunday.
Even go table or one on main drag even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure people as their,
Yeah. Randy, our rec director, did 2 weekends ago, a pop-up Kona Ice event. And it sounds like he has some more planned in the works, so I
Okay.
asked him to coordinate,
Yeah.
The QR code, I feel like there was a whole, like, blurb, was it just a
Yeah.
QR code?
This is just
So
kind
that's
of
the part, so that's the
Yeah.
code.
That's it, and then it's, I just know that.
quick introduction to who we are and what the study is.
Yeah, is that something we can get, like, was this an email? I didn't go through all the images, I think I just got the first one, but is this something you can send to all of us, and we can post on our social media, like, even right now? I can send it out. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because if we can get that out online right now, as individuals as well, that would be helpful. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Zach? Or?
I guess, I just have one question, just because I know someone who's really interested in this project, who bought one of the homes that's kind of right in the park, this past year, and he's a runner and runs all the time in the park. And, so I wondered how you were getting in touch or selecting homeowners, and whether you'd be interested in having the name of someone who would jump at the chance.
Yeah, I think, any kind of direct conversation we can have with any of them would be great. I mean, it's something that, in the past, we'd be looking to even doing like a door-to-door if we have it, it's,
Yeah.
make sure that we're touching base with enough of those people. But right now, we haven't had a way to kind of gauge, especially from the survey, like, are the people responding, are they people who own some of those properties, like you said, that are kind of like right within the park? But they definitely,
Give you their name.
get contact information, would be
Okay.
great, yep, yeah. I'm happy to talk to whoever.
Okay, great.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's worth sending a letter to the neighbors that are inside or directly there with the
Survey.
ability, the survey, and also, do they want to speak?
I'd be more efficient than we
Yeah.
yesterday. Saves some time.
Although I do hope that they will not have an exaggerated voice,
Yeah.
because they may not be the people who use the house. The Parkland circles. And,
Many people love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I would also think.
And I'll only assuming, I don't know if it would be true or not, that all those abutters, their complaints gonna be deer, right?
Yeah.
Tell you that right
Yeah.
now.
That's it, yeah, they're gonna want to
But they also-
focus on
But
the
it's,
deer
it's
population.
also the hundreds of people that come through their backyard,
Yes.
not their backyard, but essentially their backyard every day.
Yeah.
I do feel like that, could, I don't know,
Yeah.
be interesting. I'd be
Yeah.
really curious to see what they have to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought, I'm still in Costa Rica, here in my brain, I can't get back. Yeah, I don't have any other questions about that, that's something. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to share, Larry, or cover anything?
We've been getting out there a number of times.
Yeah,
We appreciate it, I'm so excited for this.
Did you see that patch of trout lily starting to come up down by the bridge in like the wet meadow area, like just on the other side of it towards museum?
That's one of the few native.
I know, I just saw it, they're starting to poke up, I was just out there this week.
I've noticed the invasive honeysuckle is starting
vine.
more and more, the bushes, the honeysuckle
Yeah.
bushes are
Yeah,
growing up in
these
that spot, and I was afraid that might be the end of the trout lily.
Yeah.
I'm glad are they putting out their little leaves?
They just got the first little,
Okay.
they're just starting to poke out.
Yeah.
Check it out.
And, I don't know if you're aware of this, but right smack dab in the middle of the Golden Meadow, we now have, autumn olive. There's only one tree that last fall, I thought I spotted two, but they were deep in the Teeter and, the tick infested grass at that point, but I was out there last week and, oh yeah, there's one that's maybe as tall as I am, 4 or 5 feet tall, not far from that big sentinel tree in the middle. And, there was one that popped up in the wet meadow a few years back that we managed to actually uproot, and it has not come back. So anyway,
The one you're thinking of now is where?
you know where, the big tree in the center of the Golden Meadow.
What do you refer to as, here we go with the nomenclature, when you say the golden meadow?
Oh, see, I looked on the Wyomissing Park,
Can you point to it on the
the
map?
sloping meadow above the park barn.
Okay.
The big meadow up
Alright.
against it, that
Alright.
tree that everybody takes a picture
Okay,
of.
so near that big tree is the Russian olive.
It's like maybe 50 feet downhill from it.
Okay.
Probably right where the cursor is. Right there.
It's not that far from
Was gonna go up
Omaha
after, but
Lava,
we were gonna try to pull it
the
out.
big white bird.
Oh.
The same was somebody down towards the river, there's some trees there.
Everybody's got a different.
Yeah, and the
preference.
Secret Service
There
outpost.
To change and order all that. So
Speaking, right,
we're gonna try to pull that.
Oh, you spotted it. Good.
Yeah.
Oh,
just
good.
spotted it.
Right.
okay, to be on this topic, I wanted to ask, when does the next newsletter go out?
Already did, so not just fall.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the fall one, when does the fall one go out, and when would, Jean and I had spoken about trying to get together some information about what's happening and about sort of the natives and invasives in the parkland and how that affects you, even your own backyard, and the natives and invasives in your backyard, and putting some sort of little letter about that in the next newsletter for the fall.
You'd want that by September?
August. By August, yeah, I knew it was gonna be soon,
Because
so
we might do it
yeah,
at the end of September, early
like
October.
maybe gathering a little blurb from you guys and Jean and I trying, I mean, if anybody has any input, but yeah, just trying to inform the community about the effects of invasives and natives in your backyard versus the parklands versus,
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna shoot me an email, I would absolutely love to be able to put something. in
yeah,
there
I would
about
say if we can get you and Jean to do that,
yeah,
that would be, yeah, you'd be better than me. But yeah, that was my hope, so that's gotta be in by August, okay.
You have the Audubon, there's many backyard habitat programs where these things are discussed in your selection of native plants and shrubs.
That's my question. Okay. All right, does anybody have anything else on the parklands they wanna talk about? So then we just wanna discuss trying again to go on a guided tour in May?
Well, it sounded like
Is that
April,
possible?
I mean, for your purposes, my takeaway was sooner than later.
I think April or May, because we've got the, kind of everything spreading through May. I think aiming for the draft in July, so we have some wiggle room
So if
to kind of
we,
incorporate that.
weather permitting, if say May 22nd is the most glorious day of the year and we can get out there, is that too late?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Do we want to look at an alternative date now if a week out the weather's not looking conducive?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. We have nothing else meeting wise that week, that the 20th or the 21st. And I think the other question to that is, how long do you think that walking tour is gonna take? Do we wanna start earlier?
Probably, what do you think, couple hours?
Yeah, it depends on how
Can't
much
do-
people wanna talk.
Yeah.
We'll wanna stop and point out what we're finding, and, that'll be the time, as Zach said, to go
Yeah.
in more deep about what was on the diagram. There's much thought and photos behind the diagrams today, so.
Yeah.
I mean, do we wanna try, Sharon's right, that's do we wanna try and push it a week or just a day? Do we wanna try and do the 22nd, move it to the 23rd as a rainy date?
We're talking April?
May.
Oh, good.
So our next scheduled meeting is May 22nd in
Okay.
2 months.
I
Or every other month.
I prefer we go sooner than later, cause I leave the 24th to go for Vermont, so the 23rd is my last day to get anything done here that needs to get done before I'm off figured for a week.
And your last day, you have cell phone contact.
In theory, yes, but unfortunately I have cell phone service up there.
Oh.
Do we wanna try and move it a week up then? And if the rain's terrible, we can shoot again for the for the actual scheduled date?
Meaning, do we wanna look at the 15th or the 22nd?
Yeah, do we wanna look at the 15th and try and schedule the meeting for the 15th? And if it's a terrible rainy day, then we'll hope that the 22nd is good.
I'll put a note on my calendar for May 6th,
Just,
to look a week out from the weather and start kinda
Okay.
tracking
cause we'd have to advertise the 15th also.
the week before.
Week out,
Yeah.
right. Does that work for you all, May 15th? Yeah?
And then what time would,
Social one?
what time would you wanna,
I don't know.
you said you thought 3 hours?
Yeah, do you wanna say meet at noon? I can do any time that works for the
Is
group.
up your lunch?
I'm glad it wasn't a burp. Didn't happen. I hope I heard that.
Is that, does noon work for everybody?
Yeah, it'd be fine with you.
Yeah. Noon it is. Yeah. Bring your granola bars if you get hangry.
So lunch will not be divided.
Unfortunately,
Do we wanna shift before lunch then? I don't wanna,
No.
whatever's convenient for everyone.
I don't eat lunch,
Noon's
so I'm not the
fine.
person to ask.
Start at 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Shoot for that.
A meeting where?
Where would we meet?
The easiest place that's accessible for both parking to accommodate this amount of people would probably be the Floura soccer field. Just if it's a beautiful day, I'm thinking the Highlands and Old Mill are gonna be parked.
Where would they want us
You
to?
could park at the pool too. Go up that way.
Yeah, it won't be open yet, that's true. Would that be easier for everybody to start at the pool?
That works.
Okay. Cause we're gonna have to actually put that in the public notice too, since it's a public meeting.
Is that a public meeting?
We don't have a choice, if there's a form of the committee there, it has to be.
Oh, correct. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna shoot for May 15th at noon, meeting at the pool, advertise that. If the weather's terrible, then we'll re-advertise for May 22nd at noon. Yeah, okay.
And do
Bring
you wanna
back
have
house.
the regular, do you want the 15th just to be a walking tour?
I think it could just be one.
Okay, and then have the regular meeting on the 22nd?
Oh, that's up to, yeah. I mean, I think the regular meeting would be pretty short, maybe just a further discussion.
We could do a TBD depending what we get through at the walking tour, whether or not we need to have a regular meeting and then just cancel it the week of if we don't need it.
Yeah.
So, both days noon to 2.
Yes. Days noon. Should set that up. Okay. We settled on that? Last one, we have review of the Borough Code for chapter 16 Park and Rec.
There was discussion at the last meeting about some of the things we do or don't allow, and it sounds like where we wanna go with some of those items. I mean, to me, that's more a committee discussion than a staff discussion, so we've not
Right.
yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't understand why we have a time restriction.
Meaning dusted on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like anybody's under any illusion that police patrol in the park. So to me, I think of it as at your own risk. I know many people who are, including myself, who are there in the dark, yeah, in the morning, and then we meet at 6:30 a.m. Depending on the time of year, that's pretty dark. Why is it
I know
dawn to
that's,
dusk? That makes no sense. to me.
that's pretty much every, like even state game lands, like Blue Marsh, pretty much every state park I'm aware of, they have that, and some of it, in conversations previously with our police chief, just to use our actual location as an example, it's, so if they go in to respond to doing something, somebody doing something they shouldn't be after hours, it's one extra charge. I think the intention is to discourage people, but I mean, people don't follow the rules much.
But why? I mean, there's the gentleman who's usually finishing his walk through the Parklands at 6:30. And clearly, well, he's been there for at least an hour. Why?
Yeah,
I've got other friends
agree
who
with
go,
you.
who
You
start at
said
4:30 or 5 in the morning. Why?
I would agree with Michelle's point about a lot of times with our park designs, as we see is that the dusk to dawn is just kind of a umbrella term to cover anything that's happening outside of that time. That, like you said, it's at your own risk. If something does happen or during that time, you know, it's not necessarily shouldered by the jurisdiction.
But it's always at your own risk.
Mhm.
I mean, so, I mean, I'm gonna put what you said in a harsh way. It's so we can bust you for something else. Why? I mean, to me, that's an awful attitude toward our citizens. If it's convenient for them to be there early in the morning, late at night, why are we telling them they can't? So we could bust them on another charge? That's nuts to me. So, that's my question.
For those of us who have park, you know, we have our preserves and everything, we use the dawn to dusk, as Zach generally said, to differentiate between, you know, Friday night at midnight or 1 o'clock, those kind of things where more of the funny business can happen. I don't,
We know the funny business. I mean, you guys, we catch the funny business. You see the beer cans, you see the residue, you see where people have had campfires in there. They're accomplishing that goal.
I mean, I do think it's interesting because like any of the activities that the curfew you would catch people for are also things that are prohibited through other ordinances. So like if people are playing music and drinking beer at 1 in the morning, the issue isn't that it's 1 in the morning, it's that they're playing music and, you know, drinking beer. And so that, I mean, I think gets to your point of like why it feels like, what is the curfew doing if the things that the undesirable after hour activities are already prohibited through other borough ordinances and regulations around the park.
The only other thing I can think
I
of is
mean-
it animal habitat?
I think that's more seasonal than like.
I mean, there's a lot of crepuscular, I don't get to use that word very often. There's a lot of crepuscular creatures that come out at dusk and dawn. You know who taught me that one?
What's
I
the
didn't-
word again?
Crepuscular,
Crepuscular.
C-R-E-P-S-E-U-L-E-A-R.
Not familiar.
Learn something new every day, Jim. Is it to protect, like I think, you know, fox,
Mhm.
that's primarily, I'm out at that time a lot what I see.
I feel like most of the wildlife is going to avoid people if they if they want to. Yeah, I think in our experience as landscape architects too, it's not necessarily to prevent, like you're saying, drinking or fires. It's like it's more so to say that that we're not in operation right now, so that if you do go in there and you break a leg or something like that, it's unfortunately you were there when you weren't supposed to be. It's not necessarily.
Then I guess they should use the Parklands in the weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we shouldn't be stargazing for the rec board. I mean, I think it ought to be welcoming 24/7 if that's, when it's more convenient for people. You know, you can't go there and look at the sky.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to me.
But yeah, I mean, I guess to your side is if they're gonna break their leg when they're drinking and playing music at 1 a.m. Yeah, but like if they break their leg at noon, are we now responsible? Because it's open hours?
Yes, yeah.
No, I mean, in general, Pennsylvania, along with a lot of other places, changed legislation a long time ago that any area that allows for passive recreation, a lot of those liability laws are not what they used to be. I mean, the intent was, there were a lot of private property owners who, like with Berks Nature or other places, who needed access easements over those private properties. Private landowners were reluctant to give them that because, well, I don't want the liability when a biker coming through breaks their leg. You know, that was something we looked at as part of putting the bike and pedestrian route in place. What's the inherent liability to doing this? And it's really negligible. Like, okay, you're out there, you know what the risk is. Not our fault you tripped and fell unless there's, you know, a blatant issue we knew about, we weren't addressing.
Probably more dangerous stepping in the groundhog hole.
I guess the other thing that I find more concerning than the open hours, because it is what it is, and I think everybody does it, is the swimming in the creek issue. Where we can't swim in the creek and trying to change that to sort of bathing and that whole discussion about like let people swim at their own risk. Who are we busting? When are we busting people? You know, can you do this only under the guise of, there's a bunch of things. There's like the fishing, like you can't fish, but you can if the borough allows you to, if you get permission. There was like a lot of these
You can fish if you have a
things.
license.
You can't camp out unless specifically authorized. A lot of these things were just a little vague and sketchy.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to use profanity, which I think is kind of a really archaic thing, should not be in place. Because it does fall under the guise, like I said last time, of, you know, something else that said, you know, don't, do courtesy and respect for other people. Well, don't curse around that. It's pretty straightforward. There was just a lot of things.
Because I don't have that in front of me at the moment. At the bottom, if you look at the section in parentheses, what's the date on it, the original date?
4/27/21.
No, there should be another, oh, so you're looking at that.
I'm looking at this one. This is the one that was sent out last month. And that's the one that I sort of wrote up.
Only because I'm guessing the original adopting ordinance is probably from the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, and that's
I
why I
would
feel
say
like
probably
some
the
of
80s.
these
Okay.
things
I
need
would
to
say
be
probably the 80s.
readdressed. I think addressing the swimming situation is important, and addressing the rules on what can and can't be done, and specifically so that we're not just busting sort of non-residents because we don't want them there.
Without permission.
Right, you know.
So that's a change in 21.
The change in 21 was to open it to non-residents because we were applying for grants and we can't be exclusive.
Yeah, there's just a lot of vague things in here, like the other one, all children under the age of 10 entering the pool facility must be accompanied by an individual responsible for their safety. Well, does that mean the 10-year-old can bring in the 2-year-old and claim they're responsible for the 2-year-old's safety? Like, different things like that. There's just some, you know, I know President Jenks likes to have all this here just in case we need it, but some of it is too vague and some of it is over the top. And I don't know how we, you know, maybe we address this at another meeting, it doesn't need to be dealt with now. But I don't know if anybody here wants to kind of look over, we can send it out to you again. But, you know, a lot of people play in the creek. But we have an ordinance that says you may not swim, bathe, wade, enter in any way, any waters or waterways, except in the borough swimming pool, and then only when such pool is open to the public. You can't boat in any waterways, yet we let the Boy Scouts drag the boat around, you know, on the 4th of July. So it's like,
I think the intention there might have been more motorized boats.
Well,
but it doesn't say that.
some
My concern
motorists.
is it going to be monitored? I mean, you can have all this on paper,
Right,
but if you don't have anybody, going out there checking,
but that's what I'm,
Please.
but that's what I'm saying, with this here, they can monitor, haphazardly as they see fit, and I think just let people swim at their own risk.
Well, because we all,
Or are you gonna bust everybody, like, and how do you say, well, you can swim on the 4th of July, but you can't swim here, and that's not in ordinance, like,
well, we also,
it has to be, yeah, go ahead.
I also think that there's certain populations who are not welcome to certain people. And they're more likely, the police are more likely to call if there's certain groups of people in the creek than if there are others. And it shouldn't matter.
no, that shouldn't matter at all.
Right, and so I think some of this
It
stuff
covers
lends itself to
everybody.
abuse, yeah. Yeah. And I don't blame the police because that's when they're called, so they don't have any choice but to respond. But I think you leave too much to people who decide whether to call. On stuff which shouldn't bother us anyway,
Right.
that's more my point, who cares?
They're not hurting anybody.
Yeah,
So
swim in the,
it's
swim
not hurting, it's
at
not
your
hurting
own
the
risk.
creeks, it's not hurting the fish in the creek.
You know, no actual bathing, no chemicals, no soap products, no none of that. You can make that a clear guideline, but say you can't go in the waterways, but,
Yeah.
I mean, this guy can't either, but we're gonna let him because he lives right there. It just is,
Am I missing it, or is, I didn't find in here anything that addresses events, people holding parties and other social events in the park? Is that addressed anywhere?
That's under
do.
a different
I've seen
section.
that.
It's not in this
Oh.
section.
okay. Yeah, I mean, in this section, you can't camp out or sleep overnight, you can't ignite or maintain a fire, cooking,
And a lot of that's okay.
walk the horse, can't do any of that.
Lucy, a lot of what you're thinking of is under the purview of the rec director or me. The way it's currently spelled out in the code.
And that's where I thought last time I talked about it, some of this should be under the purview of the rec director.
Makes sense.
Like it says you can't use any trapping device in the water, so you can't fish.
I wouldn't call that a trap so much as a lure. We're being technical.
We're getting technical now.
Right, I don't know. So people,
Like, I think of a
so
trap as
any,
like
so
crabbing.
people can fish? Anybody can
Yeah.
fish in the waters?
I mean, that's how we have the fishing review.
The thing you try to limit, at least in my opinion, is 20 people coming with a grill
Yeah.
and leaving
Right.
garbage behind. That's what you want
Right.
to limit.
Right.
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 Problem.
Yeah, we
That's
talked
what I
about that
focus
a
on.
little bit last time, that like, by saying you can't cook out and grill and that sort of stuff,
But you
You're
should
allowed
be
to
able
throw
to.
a
Yeah.
blanket
you
down and eat sandwiches.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
and you should
yeah.
also be able to swim in the creek, you just
Yeah.
can't set up a barbecue and
Yeah.
crack your beers open.
Yeah, because that was like one of the examples somebody gave. Well, people come up and they set up a grill and they're eating and they're cooking out and they're swimming, and that's why we need the swimming
And
ordinance. But,
leaving
like,
garbage behind.
Yeah, the
Right.
other things are,
But we
addressed
need
through
this,
other
right.
rules and
Yeah.
ordinances.
So
Yeah, I
we
mean,
say
I think it would be
for
worth,
cooking, that's fine.
at least taking a look at some of the language. Like if we could do that maybe outside of this and have a Google Doc or something that, we can.
Yeah, that we could, yeah,
Maybe
sort of,
Yeah.
start with a red line.
Yeah, because
yeah,
it does sound like there's some things.
yeah,
that
there's
we
some
agree with.
things, I don't know that we're gonna answer anything today. Okay. Alright, does anybody have anything else on that? No? Alright. We'll come to that later, we'll leave that on the agenda. Sounds good. If anybody doesn't have anything else,
Just one last quick little thing, and I've said it the last 2 or 3 meetings, that Spring Township sewer line, which we spoke about, I'm assuming they're gonna start in the next 2 or 3 weeks down near the duck pond.
FYI, return the executed agreements from us to Van Sales Road.
Okay.
and that's where they're doing some digging and stuff too,
A lot
right?
of digging, yeah.
Do we have any signs out at the Parklands?
They will be
Yes.
responsible for if there's a trail there to guide people around it, they're aware of that.
Do we wanna put up like a preemptive sign, like, hey, just so you know,
Just like you all did at the bridge,
just a quick,
right down by
like,
the wire plug.
there will be some
FYI.
digging.
But this is a little, it's not a location like the bridge, this will be ongoing for months,
And not our project, so we can't control where they're working when.
Maybe we should say,
Right,
like,
but
this
maybe-
is gonna be ongoing for months, please be patient.
It's, the contractor is aware that if they're gonna obstruct the sidewalk or walking path, that they have to delineate that, so.
Alright. Anything else? Alright. Motion to adjourn?